Welcome to the Gaggle. Sorry. I was so excited.
All right, clear your throat. All right, everybody, this is August 26th. It is 5 p.m. Moscow time. This is our Monday weekly live stream.
Exactly.
Now that George has cleared his throat, he will go take it back. Go ahead.
Exactly. I got so excited by the whole atmosphere and everything that I just swallowed awkwardly. But I'm back. So this is, we're doing a weekly live stream. 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States. 7 a.m. to our friends on the West Coast. And Peter, so it looks like Pavel Durov will continue to be held in custody for a while longer.
I just read. So it was they went from 24 hours, 48 hours. Now they're saying 72, and then latest estimate is up to 144. Okay, so that would be 6 days.
Well, is that right? 144? Because I'd read that according to French law, you can only hold somebody for 96 hours without bringing some kind of criminal charges.
Well, as if this was under the law, George.
Yeah, exactly. And we do. I mean, I guess the French don't really think about habeas corpus, but here in the US and the UK, you kind of have habeas corpus. You can't just hold people without bringing criminal charges. So it's kind of interesting because it is an issue that the Russians have raised that, well, hold on a second, when it was a matter of the Russian government having issues with Telegram, wanting opposition figures' sites taken off from VK, and then the issues with the about wanting to get back channel into Telegram. Then we had all these NGOs getting very indignant, signing lengthy letters demanding that Russia cease and desist harassing Telegram. But I don't notice any great indignation. I mean, we've heard from, obviously, we talked about it yesterday, Tucker Carlson. We've heard from David Sachs. We've heard from Elon
Musk.
Right. But I don't hear anything from Amnesty International. I don't hear anything from Human Rights Watch. Or journalists, Reporters Without Borders, and
this is all by design, isn't it, George?
Yes,
all by design. Essentially, he's a hostage right now.
Right,
he's a hostage.
Yeah, he is a hostage, because there's no criminal charges that can be brought against him. I mean, what are the criminal charges? It's he's not involved in any criminal activity.
But that's not to say, is it possible criminal activity is being conducted on Telegram? Well, it's possible, I suppose. Okay, people are abusing that platform, but can you blame the owner and administrator for everything that has happened? We've been through this over and over and over again. As George put it rightly yesterday, Facebook took the knee. Google took the knee. Okay? All right. So, but I mean, they took the knee under coercive circumstances, and so, but that's not an admission that they did anything wrong. All right. So, I mean, here we've been over this territory over and over again. Obviously, everyone, the fact that he is a Russian citizen, he's a Russian citizen of other countries. I mean, he's a citizen of other countries as well. Okay.
Right.
But that is the headline in the story. The headline in the story is crushing dissent. That's the headline. But the headline in the West is he's a Russian.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that it is a very interesting that there really isn't more of an outrage and people saying, hey, this is, you're harassing the owner of a platform. But apparently everyone's just bought into the idea that a platform is supposed to cooperate with governments. I mean, it's so self-evident that Western governments serve the good, and that any information that they want to discover is obviously for the greater good, and that therefore these platforms need to cooperate with governments. And that's, that's it. But then, if that's your view, then why did you get so indignant when it? So in other words, we have one government. That's yeah, absolutely. You have to defy them and absolutely not cooperate with them. But when you come to the Western governments, you got to basically, they need access to your, they must do your data. So it's all really just thoroughly bad faith, and that's why there is remarkable silence. I mean, it's not even covered mainly in the mainstream media. I mean, they've noted it, but I don't see too much about it in any of the.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that, George, because that is the only story in alternative media.
Right.
It's everywhere in alternative media.
Yeah.
I exhausted myself today on the number of people that are talking about it, except for the mainstream isn't. Oh, where's the human rights guy in the State Department?
Right.
Huh? Crickets.
Right.
All right. Again, I really want to stress. Look, should these platforms, if they see something really grotesque or outrageous, should they tell the government? I think that's probably not a bad idea. Okay.
Well, it depends on what. It depends. What do you mean by that?
George, well, George already gave the caveat, so why should I waste my breath? Okay, sure, under circumstances, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But this is coercion. I mean, it's making claims that you haven't proven. There's no evidence of anything that they've claimed whatsoever. Okay, so I mean, he's just being railroaded with no evidence. Take our word for it. I think we're all way past that.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I mean, I think that all of these claims that are being made are all claims that are entirely speculative. So all the claims that somehow there is fraud going on, child pornography going on, everything, these are all purely speculative. So therefore, these assertions, oh well, he's allowing this to continue, is entirely just in the realm of the imagination. And look, there are 1 billion users. So how many messages are transmitted every day? I mean, the number is just quite stunning. How are you supposed to monitor all of that? So you can't. And you look, I mean, if there's free speech, there's free speech. Now Durov, I think, isn't entirely a free speech absolutist. I think he has banned ISIS. I think ISIS can't. At least that's what I read. That he has banned ISIS from exchanging messages on the platform. So it's not entirely. It's everyone be free, but. All of this is really completely bogus. I mean, it's like the moment Western governments start talking about ISIS, you think, well, really, I mean, you kind of sponsored ISIS. You had ISIS within your crosshairs. You didn't do anything about it, and now you're going to go around accusing others of apparently facilitating ISIS. Well, who facilitated ISIS? Obama. I mean. Kerry, Israel facilitated ISIS, not Durov.
Well, I mean, the Telegram, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's that Telegram is the last major platform that is unregulated. And the Chinese, they have their own ecosystem. So I'm not going to, because the population there is so much larger, but they have their own internal messaging services and etc. But Telegram is the one that it stands out, and it's insanely popular all around the world. Okay,
right.
And because what it delivers what it claims, end-to-end encryption, privacy is respected, and that's something that is just they cannot tolerate. They can't. I get most of my news on Gaza, on Ukraine, through Telegram. Okay, I mean, I read, sources wide, establishment, and then people that George and I respect and like, and then I see that. So it's part of my, tapestry of information that I get, and I really appreciate that. The Telegram channels that follow, like Ukraine, well, I read it with a huge grain of salt. Okay, I want to see what people are saying. Okay, are they trying to sway me? Are they trying to lie to me? Are they trying to enlighten me? It's all up to me. I'm an adult. I will decide. Okay, and that's what that platform provides. That is something that is intolerable for the West right now.
No, that's true. Now the strange thing is, I read a really bad article in the Spectator today. Most things in the Spectator are pretty terrible, but the author says that there was that there's been a long-standing arrest warrant issued by France against Pavel Durov. I haven't read that anywhere. Have you read that it's a long-standing arrest warrant? Because
no,
saying,
I don't know. I don't know the French term. Was it in 2021? I just read this. Because he's an eminent personality that can add to French culture and state, they gave him citizenship. You and I discussed that. I assumed that he bought it. No, he was granted it. So what is this long-standing arrest warrant?
Right, exactly. I haven't come across any of that. So because he was simply casting aspersions against Durov, why did he go land in France when he knew that there was an outstanding arrest warrant?
And that's not my understanding.
That's not my understanding either. My understanding was that the arrest warrant was issued really within minutes of the notification that his plane was going to land in France.
Well, George, it looks like an act of opportunity. Okay, those that are listening, air quotes, opportunity. And did somebody say, hey, he's going to be here in 15 minutes? Okay, all right, get up, get a warrant together now. Okay,
right.
The quintessential telephone justice.
Right. Yeah. No. That's right. So I don't know. I mean, I think that French are going to be interesting. I mean, if they can't just go and hold him without bringing some kind of charges against him. So it'll be interesting to see what charges they're going to bring. But I mean, just being a Russian, that's not really enough.
Well, he's a Russian that is at odds with the Russian
exactly.
government. Why do you think he lives in the UAE?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, the Russians, they're because he is a Russian passport holder, because he's a Russian citizen, there's a modicum of obligation. Okay. But I mean, I'm not sure I would want to be the consular official in Paris. Like, you want me to do that with him? Okay.
Right.
Considering all the problems we've had with him over the years. Okay.
But the Russians,
that's the problem with this story.
Right. But the Russian government has already demanded consular access to him, which of course hasn't been granted. Which is indeed par for the course. But this is really the issue, because if they do try to bring criminal charges, then I don't know on what basis, on what statute, because if you go on these Online Safety Act and the Digital Services Act, the Digital Services Act only provides for civil penalties. So civil penalties if you don't cooperate with the authorities. So there are no provisions for any criminal charges against anyone under the Digital Services Act. So I don't know under what statute they can go on holding him custody.
George, my gut feeling is, my understanding is what you've said to us yesterday and today, is that this was all arranged shortly before he arrived in Paris. So, I mean, is this another one of these cases where we'll just wing it? Let's just grab him, let's snatch him up, and let's see what we can do. I mean, that's what it looks like to me at this point, okay?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
But it also could be, and it doesn't mean this is in contradiction to what I just said and what we agreed to yesterday and right now, is that, Victoria Nuland's little bag of dirty tricks. Okay, maybe that was on the whiteboard. I mean, if we can get this guy, snatch him up. Oh, he's going to be a riot. Whoa, okay, let's do it. That's my sense right now.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, there may be other things in the hamper. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments from our locals community. And right, so we have Cynthia. Always good to see you. Thank you very much. So Cynthia says, it seems like just in the last several weeks, we've seen one too many people being surveilled, investigated, or even arrested for opposing the war in Ukraine or the war in Gaza, or for simply opposing how the West is intervening in these wars. It first happened to Scott Ritter, and then to Tulsi Gabbard and Richard Medhurst. Why now? What's provoking it? Will it escalate even more?
Dimitri Symes also.
Yeah, exactly. Dimitri Symes, and yeah, that's right. To Richard Medhurst, and what can be done to put a stop to it? What can be done to it? That's a hard one. But you're absolutely right. It does seem like there's an interesting concentration of these sorts of events. I think that in a more pessimistic frame of mind, and we've talked about this before, I think mobilizing for war. I think we're maybe getting ready for war, whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in the Middle East. But I think that the public is being mobilized. War is imminent.
Well, I'm not sure war is imminent, but certainly mobilization is. You don't have to have a war to do the mobilization.
No, that's what. No, I didn't say that. I said that it's. I just said that's what they want to create, the sense that war is imminent. But it might, that's whether it is or it's not. I don't know. But I think that's kind of where this is heading. And there are enough dangerous events taking place. Particularly in Ukraine, which would suggest that we could well be on the brink of war.
Yeah, and if you're preparing for war, mobilizing for war, then you create the circumstances to allow yourself to go to war. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy as you go down this path. All right, but I think obviously there's this mentality of having to mobilize, and one of the most important things in our era right now is to mobilize control of the information sphere. That's the key to move forward, because then you don't have protests and discussions and Telegram channels saying they're violating our rights, they're violating workers' rights, speech rights, everything through this mobilization. If there's no protests, then you can't. Then it's a sign that the powers that be can continue to move forward. And I agree with the number of personalities we just mentioned right there. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence, not at all.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I think that there are enough dangerous events taking place in Ukraine, and particularly, the intervention in Kursk, which may be the prelude for further interventions on Russian territory, and maybe even from emanating from NATO. When some of the NATO states may decide that they can just simply enter Russian territory and take some space. So there could be things as the tension now between Ukraine and Belarus. Again, that could explode. I think that NATO could well be on the brink of a serious escalation. Again, Moldova and Transnistria. So in all sorts of ways to put
only here, everybody. Only here are you going to hear that, because George and I have talked about this endlessly. The last leggers out there. Now, I have said, is Ukraine on its last leg? Well, that's neither here nor there. Is NATO on its last leg? That's the question you need to ask. And I think George and I may differ in the minutiae here, but I don't think NATO's on its last legs, not at all.
No. Yep. But no, I think so. And I think there's enough to suggest that we're in a very dangerous phase. And again, this goes back to the issue that we talked about the U.S. election, which is that do you really want to put odds on there being actually an election in November? Because we could well be having in the middle of an international crisis, and then we can't possibly have an election.
I have had arrows and everything else thrown at me for saying that, George. Months ago, I said, don't count on an election, okay?
Right.
I mean, the probability that it will happen is high. Is it possible that what are the odds that it won't happen? Well, those are pretty good odds too, okay?
Right. Yeah. I think so. So I think that Cynthia's point. I think that these are the fact that a number of these events is now happening. I think is significant. And again, I just simply seizing and imprisoning somebody who hasn't committed any kind of a crime just because he's the owner of a platform, and he's basically saying, hey, I'm not I'm going to respect my users' privacy, and just imprisoning such a person, that's a serious escalation in the war against civil liberties.
I think what's in play is really obvious. Hand over the keys and we'll let you go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's it. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with, moderation or anything. This is all a smokescreen. It's ridiculous. Hand over the keys and you can go.
That's right. And again, I mean, it was like when we talk about Ritter and Dimitri Simes. I mean, Dimitri Simes, as we discussed the other day, I mean, he has been around since the 1970s. He used to be a mainstay of the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. I mean, he was, that really boring show that he would always be there, gravely, in his very stentorian voice, explaining Russia to the American audiences. Him that you mount an FBI operation against. So it's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, and George is right. I mean, he explained the Soviet Union to the American public.
Right.
But by any estimation, he did well for himself. I mean, 132 acre ranch or that's right. Okay, as I said yesterday, I should have checked his age, but I mean, he's an old man. Okay, yes, I'm not being impolite. That's just the fair thing to say. Yeah. And he's spending his last years in the country he was born in. Okay, right. Yeah. And he is now explaining America to Russians.
To Russians, yeah.
Yeah, he's explaining America to Russians now. He's flipped what he's doing. Okay.
Yes.
And so here's in his August years, and then no self-defense. He's not even in the U.S. and they raid his property. I mean, geez.
Yes. And I don't even know whether they actually even made any kind of formal notification to him, because it sounds like it was his neighbors who told him, your property, it's being completely overrun by FBI people. So he didn't even get any kind of formal notification.
Okay, first of all, I think it's very fair to assume they're not investigating a violent crime. Okay? No violence was committed. No. Okay?
No.
I seriously doubt if there was any major theft involved. So why don't we just have a chat? We're going to fly somebody out. We just want to, have
right.
Can you say, maybe an afternoon, a couple hours in the afternoon? You named the day.
Right.
We'd like to have a chat with you.
Right.
They're not investigating a murder or a kidnapping.
Well, that's it. But then you're absolutely right. So what are they investigating? In the case of Dimitri Simes, I'm assuming that they're investigating a violation of FARA. But let's say it's a violation of FARA, but it's not a violent crime. I mean, it's like it's something that happens every single day in Washington D.C. Somebody, in other words, if the worst comes to the worst, and they say, okay, yeah, you're an agent of the Russian government, it's again, what's the punishment? The punishment is simply a fine. I mean, it's so it's like you're expending such resources to establish that he's failed to register under FARA. I mean, it's a complete total misuse of government resources.
Well, then it gets a bit sticky, doesn't it, George? I mean, I fully assume he's an American citizen, and I'm sure he was granted, when the Soviet Union came to an end, he was granted his Russian citizenship. So, I mean, he's got both. I mean, FARA gets a little weird, okay? I mean,
Right.
Because he's a citizen of both countries. And plus, everything he did in the United States that I'm aware of, at least, was very public, okay?
Right.
I mean, he had a close association with Richard Nixon, the Nixon Foundation. That's where he was there for a long time.
Right.
And now he does I guess it's a weekly program here on one of the networks here. I mean, he's very open about what he's doing. I mean, it's not like, there are envelopes being passed in the night or something.
No, exactly. That's really the point, that he, I'm assuming he gets paid for that show that he does on Russian television, The Big Game, but that doesn't make him an agent of the Russian government. So it's still not clear what is it that they're supposed to be looking for. That he's an undeclared foreign agent. Well, it's not illegal to do work for the Russian government or for Russian television or whatever.
Well, so, I certainly hope
not. So and they expend these resources. Anyway, Cynthia then says, then we have the curious case of Pavel Durov, in which both sides of the censorship war are hell-bent on censoring his social media platform. Who would have thought that the dueling powers that be are on the same page when it comes to the war on words? Perhaps this also has something to do with the fact that he's fathered more than 100 children across the globe. After all, there's power in numbers, the very thing that the powers that be don't want us to have. So this is a story that's gone around about him, that he somehow donated his sperm, and as a result, he's fathered over 100 children. I don't know whether it's true, but that's the story that's gone around about him. I mean, and as we discussed yesterday, he's a very weird guy. I mean, like all these
they all are.
They're giants. They have, as you said, that they all want to live to 150. So they're obsessed with health and so on. And this thing of, I want to proliferate myself, it's par for the course. It's kind of creepy and disgusting, really. But yeah, that's who he is. But the other Zuckerberg and the rest of them are also pretty disgusting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Then yeah. So that, but I don't think his attempting to proliferate himself is the reason why the French government has gone after him.
I think they snatched him because they could.
And
figure out what they're going to do next.
And interestingly, Alexander Vindman, that awful person who triggered the impeachment, the Trump impeachment, sent out a kind of a very malicious tweet threatening Elon Musk. Elon Musk is next, and it is true that Musk has been increasingly threatened, both in the EU by Thierry Breton, who said, "Hey, you better be careful that your interview with Trump does not violate the Digital Services Act." Imagine, so he interviews the former president, presidential candidate, that might be in violation of the Digital Services Act if there are untruths spoken during this interview. So apparently he can just decide what's true and untrue, and then fine someone, and then maybe even ban them altogether. And then of course you have the British who have also sounded menacing that they want to ban X from the UK. So that's something that could well be on the cards with
I think so.
X getting banned from Europe.
I think at the end of the day, they want to get rid of all. If they can't control it, they want to get rid of it. Okay, I mean, I think that's pretty clear cut at this point right now. Okay,
Yeah.
again, Telegram is the last real big one out there that they don't have their clutches in, and
Yes.
that's what this is all about.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. Anyway, thank you, Cynthia. And then
please warn Dimitri Babic not to accept any citizenship offers from strangers. Okay, I'll pass it on. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It is odd though why Durov wanted that French citizenship. I mean, I'm not quite sure what that does for you. I mean, that actually puts you makes you vulnerable. So I don't know what how that added to his
well,
safety.
don't you think, George, that that again the mask is falling, is that well, in the West they'll protect freedom of speech.
Right.
I think it was kind of naive.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. And a DJ says it's their watch, and they wind it when they want to. Yeah, I think that's true. That's very true. So let's see. So,
Like I think we've exhausted the fathering of children, everyone.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. So Dan Rock says Durov has a residence in Dubai, where I'm at. Not heard much. Then again, I don't follow the local news other than what comes up on the radio every hour. Nothing mentioned. And then Dan Rock says there's a video of Starmer. Oh, that's terrible. In October 2021 in Parliament, specifically naming Telegram as a target. I use Telegram a lot just to follow news. I know I can find all sorts of crappy elements in it, but only if I look for it. It isn't in my face like shitty ads on other sites.
Well, everybody, also everyone, Telegram is very popular in Ukraine. Okay, they use Telegram, and they have all their pro-Ukrainian channels all over the place. Okay, I mean,
yep.
It's a smorgasbord of interesting stuff, informative stuff, and this junk. Okay, it's take your pick. It's there. Okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here, so 60 cents. Our friend from Silicon Valley says it's about 7:15 a.m. here in Silicon Valley. Thank you very much for getting up so early. As Peter said yesterday, we can almost smell the coffee from where we are. I wonder if we have entered a new era of colorless, descriptionless regime change operations. A recent example being that of Bangladesh, which reportedly had refused leasing a strategically located island to the U.S. For the purposes of a military installation. But I think that's right. I mean, anytime any pressure is applied against a state like Bangladesh, you know that the real target is India. And I think India is a thorn in America's side because India is not really following the NATO script sufficiently. It still maintains good relations with Russia. It still does business with Russia, and I think the United States is not at all happy with Modi. So I think that the attempt to go after Bangladesh was really a warning shot against India. And again, it's not that hard to create problems in India. It's we've had communal violence there many times. Something that the Americans could instigate at a moment's notice in India and apply serious pressure.
They know how to do it well. Yeah. Well, and also, again, George and I think we're the only two that keep following it, but regime change target named Georgia is on the horizon. In a big way. Okay.
Big way,
So, just to recap, everyone, they passed a law on transparency for NGOs. You know, that if you get more than 20% of your money from a foreign source, you have to declare it. It's a big transparency law. Russia has zero influence inside of Georgia. There's no Georgian opposition that's pro-Russia, non-existent. Okay, and so the Western narrative is the Georgians are adopting a Russian-like NGO law. No, it's based, maybe it's similar to the Russian one. It's just as similar to the American one, or to any other country in the European Union or in NATO. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I thought that where you were going to go with that is to say, so they went after Georgia, the threats and bullying of Georgia, because Georgia wanted transparency. And then in the meantime, France has kidnapped, which I think what is more is Pavel Durov, because apparently there's not enough transparency from his personal, his own personal property, where he's protecting the privacy of his users. Well, we demand transparency, just as we got all the hysteria that Ursula von der Leyen and the rest of them about Russian interference in our elections. We want to know what Russia is up to here. But apparently, how dare Georgia demand transparency from its NGOs? Only we are allowed to insist on transparency with stuff here.
And also the current Georgian government is kept at arm's length, pressure on it to join the ranks of NATO countries and to quote unquote isolate Russia, create problems with Russia. Georgia is a little tiny country. I've been there. It's beautiful, wonderful, beautiful country. Amazing food, okay? But it's a small place, and it's not very, I mean, there are some extremely rich people there, but most of the people that live in Georgia are quite poor. And they're saying, why are you trading with the Russians? Well, because we're a tiny country, and who else we're supposed to trade with, okay? Millions of our own citizens work in Russia, okay? There's a lot of remittances and et cetera. They're just saying, look, we don't have the wherewithal to do what you want us to do, because people talk about to be or not to be. I mean, Georgia is a small country. It can disappear. Okay? It can, okay? Little countries can disappear, everyone, even in the 21st century.
No, that absolutely. No, I mean, it's been obvious for some time that this is what the NATO powers want, which is to open up yet another front against Russia. We've talked about this. There's another front, which is Belarus. There's Moldova and Transnistria, and Georgia is another front. I mean, so these are all things that the Americans, NATO, they've got them on the back burner. They could start it. Clearly, there's an election coming up. I think it's in October. NATO is going to go in big to pull this off, and if their clients fail to win, we know what happens then. Theft.
Stolen election. Okay, exactly.
So the other thing is, which we talked about yesterday, which was the case of Bobby Kennedy and Trump, and this is really a very interesting issue, which is it's kind of been something that we've talked about, and people have talked about again for a long time, whether there can be some kind of a union between the kind of left-wing populism and right-wing populism. So so Trump, he welcomes on the stage Bobby Kennedy. The Kennedy endorses Trump, and everyone in the crowd is very excited. And Trump gives all kinds of commitments that he will, pursue the Bobby's agenda. Such as public health and such things. And in turn, somebody like Bobby Kennedy embraces some aspects of the right-wing agenda, which is, for instance, on immigration and border control. And so it's a very interesting, really, whether this can work. I mean, one looks at it pessimistically, but the reason that I thought that it'd be quite interesting to look at is that there's going to be these elections in on Sunday in Germany, and there's a let me see if I can dig this up. Yeah, so let's see if I can show this. There's an article in Politico, and can you see it, Peter?
Yep.
So this is an article on Sarah Wagenknecht, who's kind of a, she's on the left, and she's a kind of a left-wing populist who's doing rather well. She's likely to do well in these elections in Germany on Sunday. And so in Politico's headline, you can see the headline, is Germany's rising superstar so far left, she's far right. And then it says here, Sarah Wagenknecht's brand of left conservatism is upending German politics ahead of a critical elections in the East. And then he goes on that her recently formed populist party is polling in the double digits ahead of the critical elections in Eastern Germany. She believes that, but she also believes that there are too many asylum seekers coming to the country, claiming there's no more room. She reserves much of her ire for Germany's Greens, understandably, blaming their clean energy push for the country's deindustrialization, and favors closer relations with Russia's President Putin.
Well, you always have to be suspect of Politico. I mean, the last part of that, and favors close relations with Russian President Vladimir. No, I don't read that way. I don't read it that way at all. I mean, I read it as, why do we have to have hostile relations? It doesn't mean friendly.
Right. No, I mean, I think so. I mean, but she says closer relations. He didn't say close relations. I thought closer relations. Well, I mean, I think that she obviously doesn't think it's a good idea for Germany and Russia to be at war.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. So, and I think, as with the Alternative for Deutschland on the right, they're more or less saying that this has been a disaster for Germany to be, pushing it in that direction. So, in every way has worked out badly for Germany. Now, of course, when it comes to Politico, they immediately say, "Oh, they want to be good friends with Putin." So is this? Yeah. No, I think have I lost this? Okay, let's see. No, here you go. Okay, so then it goes on. Her views and scathing attacks on the mainstream left have in fact won her many far-right admirers. Björn Höcke, one of the most extreme politicians in the Alternative for Deutschland, and the party's leaders in the East German state of Thuringia, was so impressed with Wagenknecht, particularly over her position on Putin, that he once called upon her to enlist in the AfD's ranks. "I implore you, come and join us," he said last year during a speech in Dresden. And then says, instead, Wagenknecht has forged a new political force defined by a seemingly oxymoronic ideology she dubbed left conservatism.
It's not idiotic at all.
I don't think so either.
This is what makes it interesting, actually.
I agree.
It's called realignment. It's realignment, okay?
Exactly.
That's why I use this word, okay?
Yeah, exactly. That's why the sort of parallels between the kind of Trump-Kennedy are kind of interesting. In the process, she's upending German politics by chipping away at the crumbling dominance of the country's mainstream parties and further scrambling the left-right divide that characterized Western politics for most of the 20th century.
Hard to disagree with that.
Wagenknecht has since grown adept at finding a leftist angle for what are commonly rightist stances. Her skepticism of immigration is due in great part to her support of the welfare state, which she says requires a certain degree of homogeneity to function. The stronger the welfare state, the more of a sense of belonging there must be, Wagenknecht told me in Berlin, because if people have no connection to those who receive social benefits, then at some point they will refuse to pay for those benefits. That's a very important point, because I thought, ultimately people are not going to pay benefits for the rest of the world. I mean, they say, well, if we have to pay out from our taxes for the welfare of somebody else, then let them be Germans. Actually, people who are like us, part of our nation, not
Well, I mean,
welfare system for the rest of the world.
why pay for Ukrainians when they're getting social benefits and say, well, I'm going to be back in 3 weeks. I'm going on vacation to Ukraine. Okay. Well, you had that with, I think it was in Sweden when you had Syrian refugees, quote unquote,
Yes.
and they would use their welfare payments for vacations to go back to Syria, but they're a refugee.
Right. Exactly. And that's what really completely undermined Bernie Sanders' position, because Sanders, you can argue, okay, we want a welfare state, we want free healthcare and so on, but at the minimum, then you want to close the border, because if you're going to have, education, health, welfare for everyone, and an open border, then you're basically going to be providing this for the rest of the world. There's going to be a billion.
No, I mean, George, what it'll be is that Guatemala and El Salvador will be part of that system.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Well, it'll have to be.
Yeah, because it will, and this is what. See, this is what's so pernicious. See, because George and I are going to go left and right here again. This imperialist, hegemonic approach to the Western Hemisphere. They can destroy economies at the drop of a hat. Venezuela, boom, gone. Okay. And then people go marching north. I don't blame these people. I don't blame them at all. Okay. But then you have countries where El Salvador, where almost half of El Salvadorians live in the United States. What happens? El Salvador doesn't have an educational system, doesn't have a medical system. Why? Because it's all done in America. Okay. Right. I mean, they have the logical conclusion that why should we spend our meager resources on something when we can just move up to the United States or live there for a few months, a few years, come back down here, or this destroys the nation states in the South, and they have no initiative to create infrastructure for their own people, and then you have grinding poverty.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, that's why it's always a kind of ridiculous thing that if countries send their people to study, let's say they study in American universities, then the idea, and this is Trump said this, and very foolishly Trump said this, oh, well, if we have foreign students, we immediately issue them with a green card after they finish their studies. Well, no, that's wholly wrong. I mean, if Ghana sends students to the United States to study engineering, then Ghana wants those engineers. I mean,
come on home.
America just gives them a green card, then Ghana will have just simply wasted its resources on giving its people a proper education. And then here it says, another example was Wagenknecht's vote against a bill passed by German parliament earlier this year to make it easier to change one's legal gender. A law, she said, that would, quote, just be ridiculous if it weren't so dangerous. But she found a traditionally left line of attack for that view, targeting the profit-seeking pharmaceutical industry as the main beneficiary of the bill. Your law turns parents and children into guinea pigs for an ideology that only benefits the pharmaceutical lobby. But I don't know why does it have to be this category of left wing and right wing? I mean, why can't you just have both? You have two arguments. It doesn't have to be an either or thing.
I think that's a problem that Politico is grappling with. Okay,
right.
I don't think average people see. I mean, if you bring up this issue. And you stay away from the heated rhetoric of left. Do you think it's a left? Do you think it's a right wing? No, put that aside. What do you think of this policy? It's not a left or right thing. It's a common sense thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a Politico problem.
Yes, I agree. And then it says, she has repeatedly called for an end to German military aid for Ukraine and negotiations with Putin, a view prevalent on the far right, but for her, an anti-war stance rooted in the leftist tradition. But again, I mean, why does anti-war have to be a leftist tradition? Because there are always been a lot of people on the right who have been anti-war. I mean, it's just simply wrong, historically and factually wrong to attribute anti-war sentiments to the left when you've had anti-war on the right. I mean, in the United States in particular, the anti-interventionist sentiment has always been on the right. I mean, it was the right that opposed involved in either world wars and was opposed even to the Cold War. So it's just wrong to say that somehow, oh, that's a leftist thing.
Without going into detail, because I do respect privacy, but I through a conduit, through well, someone that works at the gray zone, I had to remind him. I said, tell everybody over there that there are conservatives that are adamantly, fundamentally against these wars. Okay,
yeah.
Don't just paint us with a broad brush, because it's not true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and the anti-war stance. So it's just wrong. Then she says, many Eastern Germans, even those born long after the end of the Cold War, maintain a strong sense of identity as Aussies, Easterners. Voters in the East.
But that's pejorative, isn't it, George?
I would have thought.
Depends how you use it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's largely pejorative, but I mean, I don't think it's too insulting. Voters in the East also tend to be more wary of immigration, more socially conservative, and increasingly nostalgic toward Russia. The latter trend has perplexed even some of the people who know the politics of the region best. But the nostalgia has always been prevalent, because I remember even during the Cold War, whenever people wrote about East Germany, they always said that the people in East Germany are not so unhappy, because East Germany actually resembled much more the old Germany than did West Germany. So they kind of, somehow communism kind of ossified everything in Germany. And so the actual Eastern Germany was people felt, hey, this isn't so bad, because it's still kind of like the old Germany, whereas West Germany became so Americanized and so kind of tasteless and flavorless and so on. But I think the Easterners kind of rather liked it. And I think there's some of that in this account, that there is this nostalgia towards the.
Well, when I was a student, I spent quite a bit of time in Eastern Europe, obviously in Poland, as everyone knows. But I did have an opportunity to poke around in East Germany, because I would be taking a transit visa to go to West Berlin, and the visa doesn't say what means of transportation. So you could take a car, and you get to where you go. I mean, here's my visa. I'm going to West Berlin. Right. You could take the train, and so I would make the trip as long as possible to get there, because I wanted to look around. And what George said is absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. It was very kind of quaint. Okay. Right. The cobblestones and the buildings were all perfectly kept and whatnot. I mean, it wasn't very colorful, I would admit, compared to Western capitalism, but it was foundational. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why this is very interesting, that somehow that kind of the hatred for Russia that we see in Poland, in the Czech Republic, and in some of the other East European states, it isn't at all there in Germany. I mean, that's it's quite extraordinary that there isn't any of that hostility towards Russia. And then he goes on, Wagenknecht appears to be both fomenting and capitalizing on those pro-Russian sentiments. The central issue in Ukraine is, will Ukraine become a staging area for American military bases and American missiles? She said at a press conference the day before her party was founded. She has also condemned a plan to deploy US long-range missiles on German territory. And when Ukrainian President Zelensky came to Berlin to speak in the Bundestag, her party, along with AfD parliamentarians, refused to show up. and Russian media outlets, unsurprisingly, love to quote Wagenknecht. Notice all the things she's saying here seem to be very sensible. Will Ukraine become a staging area for American military bases and American missiles? Maybe Russia kind of has issues with that. Next door become a staging area for American military bases and missiles. And do we really want U.S. long-range missiles on German territory? It's kind of extraordinary that these sort of questions have been submerged in Germany behind this ridiculous consensus, artificially maintained consensus. Oh, we must do what we can for Ukraine. It's Ukraine. That's the security. The future of the world depends on Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, what about the security, the future security of the world, when you have German military hardware in Kursk?
Right.
I mean,
yes, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And then she goes on, it's partly because Germany's Greens, a party that emerged from the pacifist movement during the Cold War, a kind of fake pacifist movement, have become so hawkish on military support for Ukraine that Wagenknecht holds them with particular contempt.
God bless her soul.
The more I see and hear of this Sarah Wagenknecht, the more I like what I see and hear. The Greens are the most hypocritical, most aloof, most mendacious, most incompetent, and measured by the damage they cause, also the most dangerous party we currently have in the Bundestag. Well, that's very well. That's really very nice.
All right, I'm asking people in the chat. Should George and I, one of us, get a cowbell to bring when we read something like this, or some other gift like that, just to show our appreciation? Okay, she's absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't. This is a translation probably from German, but
right, exactly. She once said in a video message, yeah. But probably it's quite accurate. I mean, Politico is owned by German companies, so it's probably pretty good. I love this: most hypocritical, most aloof, most mendacious, most incompetent, and measured by the damage they cause, the most dangerous party we currently have in the Bundestag. I think that's it. And then that's a message that is resonating with East German voters. The Greens have seen their support plummet so much in the 3 states going to the polls in September that they risk not winning seats in any of the state parliaments. The 2 other parties that make up Germany's 3-party ruling coalition, the SPD and the fiscally conservative Free Democrats, are also struggling. So this is really kind of nice. It's obvious that these elections will be a complete humiliation for the traffic light coalition. But again, we find that what happens the day after, that somehow the establishment wants to maintain its grip on power, and so cobbles together everybody. To keep out the extremes. Sooner or later, it's not going to work. I mean, you can't go on playing this game.
That's the wrinkle, George. That's the wrinkle. Okay, sooner or later, whatever that means. I'm agreeing with you 100%. But sooner or later, I mean, that's very elastic. Okay, George's point, if I can reiterate it in my words, is that they keep the electorate keeps sending messages, but the establishment isn't listening, and so sooner or later, let's hope it's sooner, because if it becomes too much later, then the whole democratic exercise is a farce, and that's being risked right now. Okay, that's why you kidnap owners of major platforms in the world. Okay,
right.
I mean, you don't even use the pretense now.
Right.
I mean, George said this is a civil thing; it's not a criminal thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Since when has this been a criminal matter? I mean, it was outrageous when Thierry Breton started threatening Musk, but he was threatening with these ridiculous fines that if you're in violation, we're going to hit you with a fine of, I think, 6% of global revenue, which is a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you think of global revenue
What
like Twitter.
standing does the EU have to do that? What standing do they have? They do not have standing to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Blowhard.
None.
Jeez. All right, I just saw a question here. I don't want to forget. Well, Crosstalk is on vacation a week Thursday. 10 days from now, we're back. Okay, and you can watch
10 days from now. Okay. A lot of people feel very.
George will be back. George will be back.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people feel very nostalgic. So what's happening? And of course, people get very pessimistic, and they think that, oh, that's it. Crosstalk is finished. So
this has been going on for 15 years. Every time I go on vacation, it's like, have you been canceled? No, it's called vacation. Under the Russian labor code, every employee must be given and forced to take 1 month vacation. You don't have a choice. Yep. You don't have a choice. You have to go on vacation. Okay, so that's just the way it is. Much to my chagrin, I don't need a month vacation. I just, maybe others around me feel they need it. I don't feel I need it. Okay, so Thursday next week, meaning on Friday it's on air, back in the saddle again. Okay. Tell a friend. Okay, I'm
tell a friend. Yeah.
Were you canceled? No, 15 years in a row. Have you been canceled?
Yeah, is that amazing? Exactly. We have this every year, but I guess people get very pessimistic, and they think when something disappears, then they think that's it, it's gone, it's never coming back. So I think that's the reason why they meet.
Let's put it this way: I'm not traveling to Paris, so you can rest assured that Crosstalk will be on air.
So DJ, thank you very much for your tip. So DJ asked, hey, can you help? I'm trying to calculate the ratio of FARA investigations of Russians versus Israelis, but my calculator keeps saying div divided by 0. And of course, as DJ obviously knows, you can't divide anything by 0. That's an impossibility. And therefore, there is no such number with zeros in the denominator. So therefore, it cannot happen. Is this some secret government code, or am I just missing something here? I don't think so. I think I
don't think you're missing anything here. I think it's insightful, okay, and obvious.
Yes. But it is interesting because
if Max Boot's wife was taking expensive handbags from an Israeli, no problem.
Right.
No problem.
Yes, exactly. But that's the amazing thing, is that we know, and this is it's when Thomas Massey, who just blurted this whole thing out about what the Israel lobby does. Every single member of Congress has a minder. You have an Israeli minder, and they're there to guide you, tell you how to vote and what to do. So he says every single one. You can't stop it. So and yet there is never any time anyone prosecuted for violations of FARA.
I guess Jonathan Pollard, he was one exception.
Well, he was a spy.
He was a spy for other countries as well. Okay.
Yes, yeah. That was he was a spy. Now, DJ says we need a law restricting the use of left and right to hands, feet, and driving instructions. I agree with that, exactly. Because I think these things like left and right are really leading to this completely meaningless terminology. It's just,
what it is, I mean, this is a hangover from the past. Like left and right, that means who you can talk to and who you can't talk to. I'll talk just about anyone if they make sense. And they're willing to have a conversation. They're willing to have a give and take. Okay, I don't fully. I always just say, give me 30 minutes and I'll explain my position to you. You can agree with it, or you can still disagree with it, and I will do the same with you. Okay, right. But I'm not going to talk to you because. No, right. That's what they want you to do. Right. This realignment is real, everyone. There's people that, Peter, how could you talk to that person? Right. I agree with that person's position. I'm sorry. What about their position on Trump? It has nothing to do with Trump. Okay, that's not the point of the vector of everything. It's not. Okay, and stop playing along with their game.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a very important point, because there's been this attack on Bobby Jr., particularly coming from the Kennedy family. They issued a statement, and then we have Kerry Kennedy coming out.
So who is Carrie? What relation is that?
She's his sister.
Oh, okay.
So she's Bobby, Bobby Kennedy's daughter. So she's his sister, and they all condemn him, and they condemn him for somehow he has betrayed the Kennedy family legacy. He's betrayed the legacy of my father and my uncle, and they go on and on like this by aligning himself with Trump and so on. But they don't in any way address what are the issues. He has specific issues. He said quite clearly, I don't agree with Trump on a lot of things, but the issue here is, well, yeah, but there are things that you clearly do agree with, and so there will you work on the issues that you could agree with, such as he said, freedom of the press. Clearly, this is a big issue now for a lot of time, which is the free expression, free exchange of ideas, and the massive crackdown from government. The issue then of vaccines, the imposition of all these vaccines. Again, Bobby's not a opponent of all vaccines. That's a deliberate media mischaracterization. He just says, why this proliferation of vaccines? They used to get 3 vaccines when you at birth. Now there's about 70 vaccines. You're supposed to accept all of them. And again, so that, but he's anti-vax. So you can start listing, and of course, on the issue of non-intervention and so on. So there are issues that you can agree on, just simply saying, oh my God, how can you possibly align yourself with a fascist like Trump?
Well, all I would refer the Kennedy family to JFK's speech at Harvard University about the importance of diplomacy. Okay. I mean, what JFK had to say and what Bobby Kennedy had to say when he came out and supported Trump are essentially the same thing. Okay, there's no difference there. What's wrong with negotiating? Don't be afraid. I'm trying to remember the phrase, George. Don't be afraid to negotiate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We must never negotiate out of fear, but we must not be afraid to negotiate.
George is a gem. He's such a gem. George is.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's really the points to that you've now built up this ridiculous ideological barriers. It's like they've created this fantasy of Kennedy, just like they created one of Reagan. Because Reagan was how can you possibly defend Russia? What would Ronald Reagan would be turning in his grave and so? Well, no, Ronald. That's not who Ronald Reagan was. That was never Reagan's policy. But that's the way. Oh my God, Reagan would have done this and this, to Russia. No, they would not have done so. But that's it. These that kind of neocon ideology. It's all based on lies and fraud.
Yeah, well, that is such a mischaracterization of Ronald Reagan. I mean, there's many things that happened during his administration, the dirty wars in South America and Central America. That's something that is it's a blight on his legacy. But he helped end the Cold War. Okay, I give him credit for it. Okay, I mean, here's the guy, peace through strength. Okay, that's a nice phrase. Okay, but he sat down with Gorbachev and helped negotiate the end of the primary conflict of the first parts of my life and George's life here. Okay, so I mean, again, you can do all your purity stuff. I'm so sick and tired of this. Okay, the whole DNC thing, that was just poison. Absolutely poison for the body politic, not just for America, for the entire world. Okay, it was poison, a poisonous circus.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and it is kind of remarkable that for the Kennedy family to
Yeah.
come out against Bobby Jr. in this way, again, just because he's trying to build a a coalition or some kind of a working partnership. Um, Presumably, I mean, some agreement was struck with Trump that he would get some kind of a public health role. Um, it probably would be difficult for him to get a position as a head of a department because he would need Senate confirmation. I don't know how.
I don't. Do you think he would really want that? I think of like a blue ribbon panel that he could.
I think that's a possibility, but I think he might get a position like in the National Security Council. Your job at the National Security is dealing with public health. So like it's so I don't know whether he would be able to get a job like Department of Agriculture because I don't know whether he'd be able to get confirmation from the Senate. He might, but it might be.
Oh, these people are so petty, George.
Yeah.
Of course, they would never do that ever.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's why he's going to be. I think it's marvelous. A member of the National Security Council, blue
Right.
ribbon panel
Right.
on children's health, which is extremely important. It's not talked about enough. Okay, and a blue ribbon panel on assassinations in America. And let's go all the way back to Lincoln if you want, okay? But we're going to cover it all. And of course, cover the attempted assassination on Trump because that's what Trump wants, okay?
Yes.
And Bob, you can take care of your uncle and your father, but you got to do mine too, okay?
You got it. Exactly. Exactly. So, but the Kennedy family, they come out against him. But remember, they never came out against when there were the various scandals that engulfed
Quidditch.
which engulfed the members of their family. Then they would boom, absolutely solidly. They would maintain their stance. But here, I think it's generally quite sordid. I mean, to come out in public, particularly if your sister. You may disapprove, but I don't know. I think it's just quite sordid to come out, your sister in this, I think, very nasty statement about her brother. I don't know. It's just it doesn't.
Again, I don't want to waste time on it. Everybody knows I have a major disagreement with Bobby Kennedy, and it's on Gaza with his that charade with Rabbi Shmuley. Really, that was just stomach churning, okay? Right. And I'm very angry with him to this day about that. However, what did I just say 3 or 4 minutes ago? I'm not going to go down the purity path, right. All right? If he can influence the next administration on Ukraine, right. I would be happy with that. Public health, I would be happy with that. I'm not a purist, okay? If he were sitting right next to me and say, I want you to help with children's health, but I'm really angry with you about your stance on Gaza, and don't forget it.
Right. Okay? Right. No, that's right. Let's see if we got some YouTube.
Yeah, I've heard this too. That head of CIA. I don't think so, but
he needs to get confirmed. I think any job that would require confirmation from the Senate would be a difficult one for him. I think because all the Democrats would vote against him. So you only, if he loses just a few votes from the Republicans, and particularly something like CIA, I can't see people like Lindsey Graham supporting Bobby. So here's some comments on YouTube, okay, and
sorry, I have a lot of problems accessing YouTube right now, so you're gonna have.
How bad is it for you, Peter?
Well, it's kind of dodgy. Over the last few days, I've been trying to conduct some kind of diagnostic because, number one, the authorities are watching the internet very closely. They're modulating some of the frequencies because, well, I don't want to die in a drone attack. Okay, so that's a national security thing. I get it. It's kind of a pain. Ordering Russia's version of a Uber can be, it works, but it doesn't work very well. All right. YouTube, well, the Russian government and YouTube are at loggerheads. Okay. So we went from your computer screen to your tablet to your phone. And now on your phone, you have to have a VPN, but you have to have the right VPN, and the VPN doesn't always work. So I have to admit it to everyone. I always try to be honest as much as I can. Sanctions have not really impacted Russia up until now, because now it's hitting our access to the easy access to the internet, and it's a little dodgy. And I try to be composed here, but I've got kind of angry during the day, okay, because I need to watch things for my job, for this, okay, and an hour and a half before George and I convened it. Miraculously, everything was just fine, okay? And I was watching what I wanted to watch. So it's a bit dodgy. The reason why I use the word diagnostic, because you don't know if is it my internet service provider, is it the modulation of the frequencies, is it I can't clearly discern what is impacting what, okay? And talking to my friends here, the weekend was kind of bad, okay, for everybody. So it doesn't have to do with any single thing, except for maybe the modulation of the frequencies. Okay, so that's where we stand right now.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what about your search engine? Is that do you use Google or do you use some other?
Well, Google, yeah, those son of a bitches. They took the search engine out. I mean, so you know when you go into Google, you have the search engine line, you just type right into it. Well, we don't get that. Okay, so you have to use another provider, and you have to type in your search, and then you'll get a lot of what Google has. Okay, so it's kind of it's petty, because you get exactly the same thing. You just have more keystrokes to get to it. So I mean, it was basically just kind of a pro forma protest, okay? Because our access to Google, it really hasn't changed, except for you have to go through a couple more layers to get there.
But Google is a pretty shitty search engine in any way. I mean, there are really much better search engines around. I mean, you have Yandex. I mean, Yandex is a better search engine than Google, and there are others like DuckDuckGo. So, I mean, I use Google, but it's more out of laziness. It's just oh well, I'm just so used to using Google, but it isn't very good.
Well, I mean, okay, like for example, I won't name the person, but I'd heard somebody had died, and so I typed it in real quick into Google and just, okay, yeah, he did die last. I think it was Phil Donahue.
Yep,
Phil Donahue. He just recently died.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, yeah, George is right. Just out of laziness more than anything else. Okay, yeah. But Yandex is really good. It's just its breadth is not even comparable to Google.
So, right. But the point is that with Google is that there's this constant bias. I mean, it's always biased. As to what comes up. It's always mainstream media, and it's a real pain to get to anything interesting. This is New York Times.
Well, no, I mean, I'll even go further than that. I mean, is that the key to being information and politically literate is to know what you want to look for. Okay, so I usually, I have my kind of 30, 40, 50 favorite people that I like to follow and what they're doing. And so I just go look for them and see what they're saying about it. It's a little bit more work, but you just cut out the chaff. I don't need this junk, okay? Newsweek, no, I don't need that. I have Time, I don't need that. I don't need foreign policy, I don't need it, okay? So I don't really go by publication, I go by people.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah, I think Shelley Duvall recently died as well. Yeah,
she died as well recently. Yeah. And Alain Delon, the great French film actor, that also died recently. Do people? And Meg Galucci asks, do people read mainstream anymore? It's a very good question. It's very hard to know whether people do, because you go on Twitter, you look, Maggie Haberman, and she has I don't know how many followers, and you think, really, all these people are so fascinated by what Maggie Haberman has to say, or how many followers does the New York Times has? I don't get it. I mean, why would anyone want to know what Maggie Haberman? I can tell you right now what Maggie Haberman is saying, and I haven't even read anything by her. It's just so I kind of think that this is just fake, and so this is an
I think it's fake too. And,
Yeah.
and these people that the mainstream people, the only time I really come across them is when they're being criticized by someone else. Okay, because I like to joke all the time. George reads the New York Times, so we don't have to, because I don't want to. I don't have the time. There's
Right.
too many other things for me to read before I'm going to look at the New York Times. Now, in that scandalous article, is it Screams Without Voices, or whatever that one was about?
Yeah, Voices Without Screams, or Screams Without, something. Yeah, Screams Without Voices.
Okay, then yeah, I will make an effort to read it, because I want to know what propaganda they're trying to feed you. But other than that, I really don't have the time. I mean, antiwar.com, though it's a little bit too libertarian for me. Some really good stuff at the American Conservative. Responsible statecraft, yes. I think they're turning a page. They don't want everybody to notice too much, but they're definitely kind of turning the page on a few things, okay? So there's some good stuff there, and it's well written, most of it, I have to admit. What else is there? Moon of Alabama, I'm glad he's gotten back on his feet, okay? But that's just, if he has the time and the health to be able to put something out, I find that helpful. It's potpourri. Again, you have to look for what you when like Ray McGovern published something, I'll read what Ray has to say. Zero Hedge is a hodgepodge of really weird stuff, but some good stuff too. Okay, so if you want to just jump in the deep end, go to Zero Hedge, because that's the deep end. Okay, because you're never going to reach the bottom of some of the stuff that they write. Okay, but there's some good stuff too. I mean, Jonathan Turley.
But that's the thing,
Jonathan Turley. I love his stuff. Okay, I find it instantly right there, and I appreciate that.
Who did you say whose stuff you like?
Turley, the guy that.
Oh, Jonathan Turley. Yeah. But this is the point that there used to be a time when you have the New York Times and the Washington Post. They had their kind of liberal biases, and you knew about that. But at the same time, you were able to distinguish reporting from editorializing. However much you knew, oh, this reporter has all these liberal biases, but now you just don't have it. I mean, it's like, everything a reporter reports is basically editorializing. It's just a reporter is just expressing his opinions. He's just saying, Trump falsely said this. He said, well, it isn't really up to you to tell us that he falsely said it. Just tell us what Trump said. Trump, he made a false claim. And everything is just editorializing, which makes it completely worthless. Why would I want to read this when you're just simply giving me your opinions? I know you don't like Trump, so what's the point of my reading this? So you're not giving me information, which is why I would be reading news reports. That's why it's just I'm now reading New York Times.
Yeah, but see, George and I could look at something that Donald Trump says, okay? Let's say at the RNC, okay? I'm not going to go out of the gate and say he's a liar. I'm
right.
Say, well, I'm not sure how he got to that. In his world, he sees this. This is how he connects things. I'm not going to come out and say he's a liar.
Right.
If you're calling someone a liar, then why are you having a conversation? That's over.
Right.
It's over.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's right. Anyway.
A question here: where does Peter find himself on the political spectrum? Well, I try to stay away from the spectrum. I mean, I have primarily overwhelmingly conservative views on just about everything. Okay, but the progressive movement in the United States was the epicenter of a lot of good changes as it worked itself through the system. And I don't really have a big problem talking with progressives as long as they're open-minded. The people that I have almost no ability to be able to communicate with are liberals. It's just these people are just genetically shut themselves off from reality. And I don't really have a lot of time. Okay.
Yep.
If I have the spirit, the mood, I'll go after, a liberal reasoning about something. But, I don't really, it doesn't get into my world. Why should I waste my time in hating? Okay. Why should I waste my time being angry all the time? Okay. I'm a joyful person. I love my life. I enjoy life. Okay.
Joy.
I don't need to inject hate just to get me going.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of joy, remember the DNC convention last week when they were screaming joy? Did you see the Reverend Al Sharpton kind of yelling joy, 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 joy? And it was quite scary because when you looked at his face, I mean, it was just an angry face, and he just kept yelling joy, joy, joy. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so either there's joy or there's no joy. You can't force people to have joy, and so joy. You got to joy. Somehow.
Yeah, but joy is not a politic. Okay, it's not.
No,
politics.
it really isn't.
It's not policy. Yeah. It doesn't help. It doesn't resolve anything. It's just demanding you to conform to whatever you're being told, and that's really, really dangerous. The juxtaposition, of course, was the RNC. We discussed this yesterday, George. I mean, so many different views on so many different things, and the juxtaposition is you have Al Sharpton, demanding people chant joy, but if in the RNC, and I'm not a Republican, never been part of the GOP. I have nothing to do with that party at all, zero. Okay, but when you looked at their convention, they were like happy warriors, okay? And the Democratic one, that was just like the Central Committee of the Soviet Union in 1938.
Yeah. No, that's right. Look, I mean, they at the RNC, they invited the president of the Teamsters, and he said all sorts of things that the Republicans did not want to hear, but nonetheless, they gave him a platform. They said all sorts of things that they were unhappy with. There was not much applause, but nonetheless, I mean, he got a platform. There wasn't anything comparable at the DNC. Same again as we said yesterday. David Sachs was very, very harsh on the policy on Ukraine. Again, there's a lot of silence at the convention when he was speaking about Ukraine, but nothing comparable at the DNC. So, I mean, but I don't know whether you saw the kind of the excerpt of an interview, Jonathan Karl of ABC with what's the name of the senator from Arkansas? That very thin guy.
Really odious character, Cotton.
Yeah, Tom Cotton. Well, he is normally odious when it comes to foreign policy and so on. But what was interesting is he starts saying, well, we're going to point out in this campaign that about Kamala Harris. She wants to take away private health insurance from people, and I was like, "Oh no, she doesn't hold to that position." So I said, "Well, that's exactly what she argued when she ran for president in 2019 and 2020. Yeah, but she's changed her position," it says Carl, and it says, "How do you know that? What's your basis for saying that?" Carl, of course, couldn't explain. You don't know that. How do you know she's changed her position? and that is very important. The journalists would just simply repeat this. Oh, she doesn't hold to that view anymore. But you don't have any basis. It's just people anonymously speaking on her behalf. Oh, she doesn't really think that anymore. But ultimately, until she's actually said explicitly, oh, I have renounced the positions that I took in 2019, when she was a mature person, 55 years old, I mean, then we can say, no, she doesn't hold to that position. You can't just simply say, oh, she doesn't hold to the position because I've heard it from anonymous figures. It's the same like with the Palestinians. Oh, she's a lot more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause than Joe Biden is. And you know this how?
Well, because I mean, Betsy,
told you.
They've created this little figurine, and it looks like Kamala Harris, and they call it Joy, and they just rub it and say, "Oh,
Joy.
She's pro-Palestinian, right? She's for healthcare for all, okay?
Yeah.
And everybody is rubbing it, and they get whatever they want, okay? Because it
Right.
doesn't speak.
Right.
It's like a Vulcan mind blend, okay?
Right. That's right. That's right. But what's so extraordinary is that you have journalists who should, their job should be, to probe, find out from her what is the position. And there was Jonathan Carl arguing with Tom Cotton. I mean, and in other words, Carl should be the one saying, "How do we know any of this? Tell us. Sit down and tell us exactly what your position." Instead, he's arguing with Cotton. Oh, she doesn't think that. That's not her position anymore. He says,
so it just shows that the mainstream media, legacy media, whatever you want to call it, they are Kamala Harris's lawyer.
That's right. That's it. That's right.
Yeah, she's right. She doesn't have to do a thing. The media will campaign for her. It's a lot like Obama. Ditto.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's very, very nice when you have essentially the media is that you don't even have to pay for it. I mean, otherwise, you have to pay for advertising. That's a lot of money. But here, I don't have to pay for this. So it's very nice. Your dogs seem to be very ferocious.
Yeah, it's Apple. He's demanding the other dogs play, but they don't want to. Okay, right, Apple. He's so quick, I can't grab him. And that's what he likes. He likes the chase.
Yeah.
Okay, but Buddy doesn't. He wants. There we go. Big guy, big Chihuahua.
Techfury Hunter said that Michael Tracy did a great job blowing up the RFK Jr. Trump fiasco. I mean, I think, we talked about this yesterday. I mean, I think Michael Tracy makes some good points. But I think he's so determined always to be a kind of taking a contrary position to everyone else that he kind of goes a little bit over the top. I mean, again, he'll make some fair points, but I think it's really gone really beyond any
again, he applied the Michael Tracy purity test, and if that's the test you're going to apply, then you're going to get that kind of result. George and I talked about this yesterday, and we tried to contextualize it a little bit more and trying to understand what is it meaning in this campaign and how it may impact the body politic and the electorate. And I think that's a different approach. Michael Tracy is a very interesting journalist, but if you just apply a purity test every single time, well, then you get the result you want. Is that interesting? Maybe not. Okay.
Right.
Is Crosstalk having broadcasting problems? No.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Yeah, Iron Candy says Politico is from the same people who own Die Welt. Yep, Axel Springer, Bild, and a loyalty agreement to the U.S. and Israel for their authors. That exactly right. I mean, it's among the worst of all the magazines. Politico, it really is.
Well, I mean, Politico, it should just rename itself as anonymous source. That's what they should call it. Because that's the whole. If you look at it, that's what the whole thing is.
Right. You got John.
People close to the story. Okay.
That's right. John Mazier says, "When has peace become a far right idea?" That's it. That's very nicely put. When did peace become a far right idea?
When did negotiation become a dirty word?
That's right. Yeah. The far right, Putin's friend. So.
Everybody calm down. Apple.
Dan Rock points out correctly that Galloway worked with Farage on Brexit. However, they couldn't be working on Palestine or a lot of other things. But it's true. I mean, on issues you can work together, and but a lot of people attack Galloway for that. I mean, a lot of very harshly when he worked with Farage on Brexit.
No, APAC isn't paying me to say I'm on vacation. Well, where do these questions come from? Okay.
APAC is paying you. So the CIA, the head of the CIA, head of the FBI are all they're all jobs that require Senate confirmation. So it's not a question of whether it's a cabinet level position, but those kinds of jobs, they require confirmation by the Senate. Just like all federal judges require confirmation by the Senate.
Well, one thing is for sure, that if he had to go in front of the Senate, that would be an A ticket to performance and entertainment. I mean, that would be a must watch if it ever happened. I think it's inconceivable. No.
That's right. So Ivan Groznev says, "Hey, Peter and George, just wanted to say thank you guys for all you do. Thank you very much. I found Crosstalk after watching RT and enjoyed the show so much I came to the Gaggle." This is very good. This is the kind of messages one wants. I've been listening to the Gaggle for almost 2 years. Great work and keep it up. The Gaggle is easily my favorite podcast. I didn't write that. I didn't write.
Well, Apple didn't write.
Yeah,
it.
you wrote it, but no.
Apple didn't write it. Okay.
No, that's right. So.
Can you see yourself, Apple? You see that? Yeah. Sometimes he barks at the mirror.
Yeah. So E. Austin asks something that I talked about last week. Is it true Russia has flung open its doors to Western people who disagree with neoliberalism? Yes, the answer is they've done that, and they've offered fast residence permits for people who want to be refugees from Western neoliberalism or to escape Western decadence. So it's a process whereby they really speed up your ability to get a residence permit. Normally, it's an extremely difficult process, as you know, Peter, but they've done it now. This was announced last week for that getting residence permit for 3 months. And I guess then it can be extended further.
Yeah, but moving to Russia is not easy.
Right.
Okay, not easy. It's not easy to put down roots. Okay, it's a society unlike in the West. And particularly during the Soviet Union, there wasn't mass migration to the Soviet Union. Okay, and what the kind of immigration Russia's had since the end of the Soviet Union is from the South, and that is migrant workers. Okay, and up until 2008. It was very easy for migrant workers to come from like the stands, and then after 2008, because it was started creating some social strife, too many people too fast, and there was very little integration. And to be fair, there was very little indication on the people that were the migrants, is that we're just here to make some money and go back home. Okay, but when you had that kind of critical mass, then it started to create social tensions. Like you don't know how to use the metro correctly, you don't urinate in the street, you don't sacrifice a lamb at the end of the street. We don't do that here. Okay, a little hyperbole there, but I think everyone gets my point. And then now, George is right. I mean, they've loosened up a little bit to get a residence permit, but not citizenship. No, that's still a lot of work.
They're not offering a citizenship. It's just that you'll get I guess you can claim you're a refugee from neoliberalism. But I mean, there are still some questions that are obvious. I mean, first of all, you're going to have to find some means of supporting yourself. I mean, they're not going to support you. So if you come to Russia, they expect you to be able to. You have to come with money, and I guess you have to then look for work, to do something there in order to support yourself.
It's just an absolute must. You have to have a modicum of Russian language skills.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just a
I think that's the one they've loosened up. That's part of the program. They've loosened up the need for the Russian language. I mean, obviously you need language skills to get by, but they've loosened that up. They don't demand that.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, they've loosened up on it. But I'll tell you, if you have a smattering of Russian and you have a lot of money to go to nice restaurants and all that, everyone will speak English with you. The menu will be in English, okay? And they love to speak English, okay? Even when I speak Russian, they speak English back to me because that they want to practice it, okay? But that's, if you have a person of means, you call a taxi, you don't have to communicate because it's already where you want to go. You don't have to say anything. You can get by. You can easily get by. You can go to the upscale grocery store called Azbuka Kusa, and it's very expensive, and they have people that speak English if you want. Okay, so if you have that, if you can live in that strata of society, then you think, hey, it's easy to live here. Okay, but if you don't, a standard middle class, that's going to be challenging. Okay, because when you have to pay your phone bill, no one's going to be there speaking English. They're just going to gawk at you. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
It's challenging, and Russians are very friendly, but they're not friendly like Americans are. Hi, how you doing? Nobody does that here.
No.
No one does that here. Russians don't really engage in small talk at all. They're not small talk people. So, if you're gonna, I need help. Well, find help. Have a nice day. Okay. And it's not because of malice. It's just that, I got things to do. You got things. Why are you here then? Why are you here? Yep. It's very pragmatic that way.
That's right. The other thing that occurred to me is I wonder whether, I think there will be people who are going to come to Russia. I think that absolutely by throwing the door open, I think that people from the West are going to come to Russia, but they may not be the best. It's like when Trump famously said, when Mexico sends its people, Mexico doesn't send its best. I wonder whether the people from the West will be coming. Oh yeah, I'm a refugee from
well, now that you mention it, I'm going to be very opaque right now. All right, but yeah, I've come across these people that want to live here. Okay, and my attitude is, if you put down some roots, show you really want to be here and you want to add to society, maybe we'll talk once in a while. But up until then, no. I'm no welcome wagon.
Right.
Because there are people that come here for very odd reasons, my experience, okay?
Yeah.
And so I keep people at a distance that way. I've been here for 25 years. I've made a commitment here, okay? And so if you're just going to come here and want to get sympathy from people, you made a big mistake.
Right, but I think there may also be people who they may be fleeing from the
Thank you, George.
The legal authorities.
There were there was one particular individual that got I think it was not the Moscow Times. It was the other one, the competitive. Anyway, there was another English language newspaper, and they found out that one of their writers was wanted for statutory rape in Chicago. Okay?
Yeah, that's exactly. There may be all kinds of things like, exactly. You're wanted for statutory, or there may be, sexual harassment accusations weighing you down, as there have been with a number of these French film actors who basically taken out Russian citizenship. Very nice because. With the weight of all the sexual harassment allegations against them, they think, hey, that could even become criminal charges. So it's very nice, you know. You can, hey, I've got Russia. I can just simply make my home in Russia, and I can, you know, escape all these essential criminal charges against me. I mean, particularly, I'm thinking about Depardieu, Gerard Depardieu, who has a Russian citizenship, and but he has a real lot of problems back home in France.
Yeah, but I have my very small circle of friends. Many of them have immigrated to Russia. These are very, very serious people. That's why I hang out with them, because I don't want to waste my time on boozing and chasing skirts. That's not, you know. But these people they're married to Russians. They have good jobs. They have higher education. They're good people. That's why I hang out with them.
Yeah. And Harry Smith said, I've started learning Russian. It's my 9th language, non-fluently, I'm afraid, but I like classes, fast-paced. I knew about the highly inflected grammar, but no declension tables to learn by rote. Yeah, all right, well...
Yep. It's basically a huge algorithm, okay? You know, like the accusative case, you just have to remember that when you have this particle, it ends this way most of the time. Right. At least in Russian, see, when the Bolsheviks came to power, they cleaned up the Russian language. They got rid of a lot of the exceptions, okay? They really made it uniform. But then you have other countries like Slovak and Polish, Ukrainian, which personally I'm not really sure is a language, but you know, because of national identity, no, we don't touch the language, you know. Right. And I learned Polish. I spent years learning Polish and saying, why do you have that exception? Because it's Polish. We like exceptions. No one ever said that, okay? But it's part of our, you know, it's part of their identity, okay? And the Bolsheviks said, get rid of all this junk, okay? We don't need this stuff. And they really made it uniform, which actually makes it a little bit easier to learn.
Yep.
Russian is easier to learn than Polish.
Yep.
You just have to get used to Cyrillic letters. That's the first thing. Just get used to it. And once you've gotten used to it, it just works. Okay.
Right. All right. Well, Peter, I think that our time is up. I think it's been a lot of fun, as always. So thank you very much, everybody who has joined us. Thank you for all of your comments and questions and ideas, suggestions. I think Peter's reassured people Crosstalk will be back soon. No, it hasn't been cancelled. So I think you know, people are getting very anxious. So
well, there's some sometimes people do it maliciously. Okay. Oh, he fell afoul with the authority.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
I'm sorry.
My experience is that, you know, I'm left alone to what is my phrase? The good thing is they leave me alone. The bad thing is they leave me alone. I'll let you decide what that means.
All right. Anyway, so we'll be back next Monday, the same time, and I'm doing my solo live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon on the West Coast, tomorrow, Tuesday. So until then, all the best. Bye-bye. And hit the thumbs up sign, please.